My name is Sam Jenks, and welcome to another episode of The Way We Source, a podcast hosted by Kodiak Hub, where we share our talks with procurement practitioners, leaders, experts, consultants, content gurus, and people that we find downright inspiring, diving into the role that sourcing and procurement plays in the way that we live. If you like today's episode, make sure to rate the program and give us a follow. Today, we have a look from the other side of the business. I'm incredibly excited to speak with a fellow marketing and brand enthusiast like myself. Our guest today brings with him over 25 years of global executive experience within the FMCG space from brands such as Colgate and L'Oreal. He's currently transferring that wealth of knowledge and advising startups in the space of sustainability and healthcare. He's joining us today to speak about the relationship between sustainability and innovation, as well as marketing and procurement. And it's a very exciting topic that we look forward to diving deeper into. We're very pleased to welcome Rani Al Hajji. Rani, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be spending some time with you.
Same here. And it's fantastic, like I said, to have a fellow marketer and brand builder on the show. So I'm curious, as a marketing professional, what do you think of when you hear sourcing and procurement?
Well, the relationship between sourcing and procurement and marketing, I think, has come a long way. So I think it's fair to say that when I started some time ago, it wouldn't be a stretch to say that the relationship was maybe borderline transactional. So this is what I need, and I need it at a certain price, and I need it with a certain supply chain, and that was kind of it. And I don't think I'm exaggerating too much. And I think the successful teams and the successful companies are the ones that have over time been able to evolve this, and it takes leadership and a vision from both sides to really understand what they can bring to the equation, what they can bring to the table. And I think over time I've come to realize that my colleagues in sourcing and procurement could be strategic partners, both, yes, in terms of optimizing the numbers, but even more so, and I guess we'll spend some time on that in terms of resetting a little bit how we're developing products, how we're rethinking the very DNA of an innovation or a product. Everyone has a role to play, and clearly procurement and sourcing can have a very key and strategic role in that equation.
That's a fantastic way of putting it, because I think that some businesses are unfortunately still stuck in that transactional relationship, right? And it is important that procurement and sourcing are seen as a partner to marketing and a more strategic partner, as you mentioned. You, during your career, were 21 years around that at businesses such as L'Oreal and Colgate. If you were to break down that time, because that's a long span of time at some pretty significant brands, if you could break down that time into kind of 3 or 4 different eras of more so concrete eras or chapters, how would you break it down?
Yep. I think there's a couple of phenomena that have happened, and they've had various impacts on us as we work together. I think, first of all, the industry, and by industry I say, at large, the consumer goods industry has gone through cycles of growth and then lack of growth and then growth again and then lack of growth, and each one of those cycles forces you to adapt, and go for volume, and maybe sometimes go for pricing. And if you go for pricing, sometimes it's at the detriment of volume. And of course, it forces all the functions to adapt, because your sourcing, your supply chain, your financials, your go-to-market are impacted by those cycles. And there has been a premium to those who were able to be nimble and adjust their plans accordingly. And this is, and I guess this will never stop. So you will always be in between 2 cycles of growth or 2 cycles of stagnation. The other cycles that I've observed as well, and this is more in terms of global multinationals and how they operate, is also back and forth cycles between being very global and very centralized and being much more locally driven. And of course,
Mm, mm.
each approach has its pros and its cons, but also has impacts in terms of how you source. You can be very vertical, very integrated, and of course this has a certain supply chain and a certain way of developing things,
Yeah.
including from a marketing standpoint. Or you can decide that you will shift the cursor to something that is much more locally driven, with probably sacrifices that you will make in terms of simplicity versus complexity, and so on. And then I think maybe more fundamentally, and we've all seen it in our lives, but they have been in the last 10 or 15 years, big fundamental shifts that have impacted the business. Um the whole digital trend,
Yeah.
and how digital has moved from just being a medium to being everywhere. Sustainability, of course, has had tremendous development and impact, particularly in Europe, but not only in the last 7, 8, 10 years. And of course, this has a huge impact on how you develop products, how you source products, and choices that you make. And now we're in the phase of AI transforming many things, or many of the ways by which we work. And I think each of these shifts has been an opportunity for organizations, and within organizations, departments,
Mm.
to reassess how what they do and how they do it. And I guess
Yeah.
also how they collaborate together, because when sustainability hits you, it's not just the chief sustainability officer's responsibility or the marketing
No.
people's responsibility. It's actually, when you really get into the weeds of it, it's everyone's responsibility. Everyone has a role to play, and it forces you. And by the way, the same goes for digital. There's no such thing as one person owning digital.
No.
It
No.
impacts everyone. So it forces you to reassess and redefine how, as an organization, you operate, and different organizations within the organization or different departments work together. So maybe a long-winded answer to your question, but this is kind of what I've seen in the last 25 years. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, the shifts that you're mentioning are also significant shifts that I think a lot of our listeners are probably seeing within their businesses as well. One of the relationships that you touched upon there is kind of the relationship between sustainability and digital. I would say, in a lot of ways, like people would see digital as an innovative kind of it's moving ahead the cursor of kind of how a business functions, right? It's allowing a business to be able to think outside the box, and innovation can happen both internally and externally within this new context of the digital world that we're living within, right? And especially, as you said, with the rapid impact of AI and alike. There's a very interesting dichotomy there between sustainability and innovation. I'm curious because we spoke before the episode that you felt as if there was three very clear pillars that kind of drive this relationship between sustainability and innovation. What are those pillars that you see?
Yes, it's so you have to think of sustainability as a comprehensive, multidimensional view on things, and you have to go beyond just a carbon footprint, or water waste, or whatever, because I think what authorities, regulators, consumer associations, I mean, the world is asking corporations is to be more sustainable. And the definition may vary from one industry to the other,
Right,
because if you're in food, in a food related industry, how you source and what you source and biodiversity is extremely important. If you're in a
right,
hardcore tech industry, then something else matters. So you have to, I think, fundamentally, before even getting into innovation, you as a industry and as a corporation and as a leader within this industry, you have to define your take on sustainability, and it has to be genuine and authentic, and it has to be credible, and it has to be fact based. So
Right.
I think we're seeing a lot of a backlash on non-substantiated approaches to sustainability. So you have to be real. Now, related to innovation, I think from my experience, and this is just me talking based on what I've experienced and what I've seen, I think there are three indeed dimensions that are important to take into account. The first one is when you are in the business of launching new products and innovating, I think there's now a body of evidence that tells us that if you really want to make a difference in terms of the environmental footprint of what you're developing, creating, producing, and commercializing, you have to take innovation on from the very beginning of the conception of the product. So
Mm.
when you're starting, and it happens every once in a while, you're starting from a blank sheet of paper. This is where you need to put together or a framework in terms of what you will accept and what you will not accept, and what you want your product to have in terms of a footprint. Anything that comes later in the process usually comes too late to have a real impact, because you've already made decisions in terms of elements of the product. You made decisions in terms of maybe the cost structure, the pricing, what goes in it, and it's very difficult to go back. So it's extremely important that you take into account whatever it is that you want to do from a environmental footprint at the very early stages of the conception and the development of your product. And this is where,
Mm.
and we'll get to it, I guess, but this is where a very close collaboration and a strategic discussion between the various stakeholders, including procurement, including finance, including supply chain,
Mm.
including marketing, including scientists and R&D, is extremely important, because this is where you can make fundamental decisions that have the most impact. The second thing, which is important to keep in mind, and this is something that has been proven and time again by real, I would say, market based evidence and data, is that uh, at the end of the day, people consume your products for a certain function that they get, or a certain benefit that they get out of it. So they will buy a
Right.
shampoo because they want a great shampoo hair cleaning experience. They want their hair to be soft. They want their curly hair to have perfect curls. They want a great fragrance. They want soft hair, and they will never sacrifice those expectations just for
Mm.
sustainability. And their expectation, and they're right, rightfully so, their
Mm.
expectation is that you will do whatever it takes to make that experience the most sustainable possible, but you shouldn't expect from them to trade off their expectations, their functionalities, just because of sustainability.
Right.
And I think this has been a common mistake that has been done in the early years of sustainability, where marketing teams thought that people were so interested and vested in the sustainability promises that they would sacrifice some key elements, functionalities of a product. No, they want both, and it's our job as people running brands and businesses and categories
Right.
to collaborate to figure out how to give them products that are at least as good as what they're used to, but with a
Right.
significantly better sustainability footprint.
Which is where the birth of the cardboard straw comes in, as we all know, right?
Yes,
And the question
yes,
is,
yes.
is that equally as functional? No. But all jokes aside, I mean, yeah, consumers. I guess at the core of that is, are consumers willing to sacrifice? And it sounds like the answer is foundationally no.
They're not, unless there's a significant amount of education and communication that goes against it. But
Yeah. You
uh,
said, Rani, just to double
yeah,
click on that topic, because it is a very, very interesting one. You said that there is some research and market studies that backs it up. Can you think of anything that you remember, maybe from your days when you were at L'Oreal or Colgate, a particular item of some insight that you guys got from market intelligence that you could recall that was pointing towards those kind of takings or summaries?
So I don't have right at the top of my mind any particular article, but I surely can find a few. But what I've seen firsthand is really in market evidence. I mean, you launch
Yeah.
a product, you lose 20, 30, 40% of the functionality of a core functionality of the product, and you assume, and sometimes studies will tell you that you're right, but those are pre-launch studies. They will tell you that people might be okay with sacrificing a little bit of the functionality. You launch the product with high expectations, and it flops because people are disappointed with the user experience. So
Right.
I've seen it, and not only in the categories that I have worked on, but in neighboring categories as well. I mean, in market evidence,
Yeah.
we went through this, and many brands went through this.
Well, then let's shift back to it, right? Because
Yeah.
if we can't then sacrifice functionality, and also we need to make sure that sustainability and innovation are aligned, kind of from the beginning of building that product or service experience. Then what else do we need to make sure that we're going to do to make sure that we can bring sustainable products actually to market, and really innovative products that have sustainability at the core?
Yeah. So, I mean, you can always take the existing product and try to take it one step at a time to a more sustainable place. So, obviously,
Right.
if you're mass market shampoo or shower gel or toothpaste or whatever brand, and you're selling hundreds of millions of tubes or bottles or whatever, any positive, any step in the right direction will have a major impact, even if
Right.
in absolute or in relative terms it's not huge, but in absolute terms, just because of the sheer of the volume, you'll have an impact. Now, the other thing, and it's the third point that we alluded to when we spoke, is rethinking completely your go-to-market model. What comes to my mind is bulk products. So now, increasingly you're seeing supermarkets having bulk sections of rice or cereals or spices or nuts or whatever. And you see some experimentation in terms of coming with an empty jar and filling it up with shampoo or soap or whatever.
Right.
This is a one way, and I don't think it's the only way that you can do it, but it's one way of rethinking your route to market and how you're selling your product. When you think of it, liquid soap, the way we used to buy it is a hell of a lot of plastic for just soap. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a plastic bottle with a very plastic heavy pump, and you either keep buying the same product over and over, or you buy a refill, but it's still a lot of plastic.
Right.
So I think what people are doing, and they're still figuring it out, is how do you rethink that model so that people still get the product, but
Right.
you skip this very plastic heavy solution that you're relying on right now.
Well, this brings up a very interesting point. And thanks for walking us through kind of on those three main points again of taking it from the end, the beginning. Making sure that you need to be open and rethinking the go-to-market model. You can't sacrifice functionality, and then the last point, of course, is making sure that sustainability is integrated from the beginning of the development of the product.
Yeah.
But you hit upon, I mean, it's this functionality thing that I'm so interested in. As a consumer myself, right? I don't use a lot of shampoo as a bald man, but it's the same for a shower gel. I'm curious, like what are the instances where you see businesses, can sacrifice functionality, and are there instances also where businesses just aren't willing? I mean, the plastic pump was a perfect example, as you talked about, right? When it comes to a shower gel or to shampoo, is a business willing to sacrifice on the functionality? Is the end consumer willing to sacrifice?
So I think they have to. I mean, they have to. Let me step back just a second. I mean, how many pumps do you need in your life? Would be the question, which is
Great question.
and I think one of the conversations that is happening, and should be happening even more, is if you're selling soap, fundamentally you're selling soap, and you shouldn't be obsessed with selling a pump. I mean, the pump is a delivery system, and you shouldn't be making money out of a pump. You should be focusing on making the best possible soap, great fragrance, great washing properties, great foaming experience, great rinsability, obviously sourced in the most environmentally conscious way. So with an eye towards biodiversity and how you're sourcing your ingredients and your fragrances and the impact when it's washed down the drains and everything.
Right.
So this should be your focus and the focus of your procurement teams and your marketing teams and your R&D folks and scientists, etc., rather than pushing pumps to people.
Right.
And I think this is, I mean, and I'm taking this as one example, but this is the paradigm shift that needs to happen, where people need to understand, yes, packaging is important because this is how you display yourself on a shelf, but the market and the expectations for sustainability coming from all around you force you to kind of rethink a little bit. What exactly is it that you're selling, and what exactly is it that you want to focus on?
It's a great point. It's a great point. You're not selling the pump; you're selling the soap, right? So then the question is innovation, because it's a word that gets thrown around a lot in a business. Isn't innovation in some essences taking that step back, like you just kind of walked us through, and saying, what is it that we're actually delivering to our end customer? And that's where we need to focus on innovating, rather than the model that we always know has worked, and to being true within our go-to-market. I mean, as a concept, right? It's a big, grandiose concept here, right?
Correct.
I mean, how would you define what innovation really truly looks like, and maybe some applications of that you've seen within businesses that you've worked within as well?
Yeah, so I mean, there are tons of people much smarter than me that have written books about what exactly is innovation. But I mean,
right.
from my own simple vantage point, I think for me, innovation is a combination of four things. I mean, successful innovation is usually a combination of four things. The first one is something new. So it can be a new formula, a new technology, a new process, a new way of doing things. I mean, and you see, and I see examples of innovation that aren't necessarily a product, and you can see innovation coming from all parts of the world. So something new. Let's put it this way: something new.
Right.
But you have to marry this newness with a deep understanding of your end consumer or your end customer, and what is their life like, and what are they looking for, what are possible issues they're facing when interacting with your category or your product or whatever. So you need to have that curiosity and that empathy for your end consumer, and kind of then from there you have something new. Your end consumer, your end customer. You need to find a sweet spot where whatever it is that you're bringing actually will add value to that end customer or end consumer in a way that is quickly understandable, tangible, perceivable, etc. So they need to understand that this whatever that you're bringing is actually is going to add value to their life. And then I think the fourth dimension, which is important, is that there has to be a commercially viable proposition, and I think from both sides, which is, for the end consumer or customer, they need to see enough value that they will be willing to pay some money for it.
Right.
And then on your end, you need to figure out the price cost equation so that you actually are able to make a profitable business out of it. And this is where, it's more than just a bunch of marketing folks innovating. You need to have a financial perspective. You need to have a supply and supply chain and procurement perspective, because you can't launch stuff and not make money out of it. Or, if that is the case in the first few months because you're ramping up and you're waiting for scale up, that is fine. As long as you have a plan, 6, 12, 18 or 24 months down the road to actually scale it up and make some money. So for me, a successful innovation is kind of something that is new, that adds value to people in a way that they perceive it, that they're able to, that they see enough value in it that they would pay money for it, and that you can make money out of it.
Perfectly summarized. What are some of the typical kind of pitfalls that you've seen in businesses that are trying to innovate?
So for me, the two. So I see, and obviously in my recent experience interacting with tech and innovation startups, I see a lot of innovation. I see a lot of new ideas, and there's no lack of bright minds coming up with new ideas. I think what typical pitfalls that I see, and it's not systematic, but I think those are the ones that I see the most, is a disconnect with the end consumer, a disconnect with the people that are intended to be at the receiving end of your innovation, and if you don't understand them, if you don't empathize with them, if you don't spend some time with them, there is no way that you will be able to turn your innovative idea, no matter how great it is, into something that actually connects with them. So I think this disconnect with the consumer is one of the biggest pitfalls that I see. And then the second one is the whole commercialization strategy and how to make it a viable commercial proposition. So understanding how you get it to market, where do you sell, where do you retail, the maybe mundane aspects of selling something, which is, what's the price, what's the cost, and how do we kind of make it an ongoing, sustainable, from a business standpoint, proposition.
Because innovation can be great, right? But without being able to make money on it, it's not going to be innovation very long, right?
Yeah, it doesn't work. No. And just to go back to my first point, I think I've seen a lot of people struggle in actually articulating with plain layman consumer words what exactly is the innovation that they're bringing to market. So I've seen a lot of academics and scientists and etc. get super excited about patents and studies and formulas and stuff, and rightfully so. I mean, this is the core of what they've been working on, and this is fundamentally what they're delivering. But if you're not able to take that step, that leap, and turn it into something that everyday people will be able to understand, relate to, comprehend, and get excited with, then you're missing something. And this is where, and I know we're focused on the relationship between marketing people and procurement and sourcing people. But I think if you step back holistically, this is where the conversation has to be as diverse as possible. So you need to bring in designers, you need to bring in copywriters, so that you're able to humanize that innovation that you have, which is not just a technology, a formula, or whatever. At the end of the day, you're talking to people, and consumer goods is all about, it's consumer and goods. Consumers are people, and you need to make whatever innovation you have understandable and attractive to people.
Well, you hit on something very, I think, foundational to us as humans, but also consumers. Whether you're on the buying or the selling side of the coin in the business, right? The value of your product or service is only as great as your ability to articulate it when it's all said and done, right?
Absolutely.
And what you're hitting on here, though, that I want to double back to, because I think that it is deeply connected to the relationship between procurement and marketing, is this empathy for the end user, the end consumer, right? How do you believe that marketing procurement, I mean, you've hit upon a few items already during today's episode, but how do you believe that marketing procurement, that relationship and that collaboration can play a role in enhancing the end value for the end customer or the end consumer?
Yeah. From what I've seen, and again, it's, sample size of one, which is me, but based on what I've seen, I think the relationship works well when the two functions are able to carve out time together outside of the day-to-day interactions that you will have, when you're budgeting or when you're reviewing a specific project. I think it's good to find some time, and I would say, I'm not saying, a huge amount of time, but, quality time to spend together, and to discuss longer term perspectives, trends, and kind of bring each function closer to the other one. And by that I mean, for instance, I've seen tremendous value in spending time with my procurement counterparts with their suppliers, and doing strategic reviews where you step back a little bit. You're not talking projects per se, or maybe you'll talk about project at some point in the conversation, but you step back a little bit and you say, they tell you what they're seeing in the marketplace, and they tell you what they're seeing in terms of innovation, and what they're seeing in terms of the trends, what they're seeing in terms of some prototypes that they're working on that are maybe not quite ready, but they're kind of showing you a little bit, giving you a taste of what they're seeing as potential new things coming. And conversely, you can have a conversation in terms of what you're seeing as a marketing person or a business person as trends. And from those conversations, you're bringing two very different perspectives to look at the same thing. And there can be tremendous richness that comes out of this, because you're not bogged down by the day to day. I need this by then and at that price, etc., etc. You're stepping back, and I think conversely, at the other end of the chain, I also see value in taking procurement folks to see the consumer, walk the stores, and for instance, I mean, a very good example is just go and spend one day in the retail space. Look at the products, look at your competition, look at other categories for inspiration as well, because I've gotten tremendous inspiration looking at categories that have nothing to do with toothpaste or shower gel or whatever, just because sometimes, you're so self-centered on your own competitive set that you lose a little bit, that broader perspective, and you can go and see what snacks are doing or what diapers are doing or whatever. And you never know. Sometimes you get some really good ideas. And when you go there with a very different set of eyes, procurement, finance, R&D, et cetera, they will see things that your brain is not wired to see, just because you're trained to see certain things. So I think spending more time together and making the room for that, the space for that, and going, at the two ends of the spectrum, which is, marketing spending time with suppliers, and procurement spending time at the shelf with the consumers, I think can bring tremendous value. And if anything, it will just strengthen the relationship as well.
Fantastic points. I mean, the end value that you're bringing to a consumer starts at the source, right? Where procurement has that relationship, and adversely, right? For marketing, the end value that you guys can deliver, the insights that you can capture can adversely be fed back, directly to procurement to understand, what do I need to seek at the source, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that relationship is so interesting that you're touching upon. Sustainability is a topic that we've touched upon, and you've given some insights as to, kind of your take is in a lot of ways, it needs to be a holistic and a business approach, right? And I think that's what a lot of people would say. I don't want to put words in your mouth though. So I want to hear from you, right? It's obviously a shared responsibility for sustainability to be a reality. But I mean, how do companies truly adopt this approach? And also, as a second part of that question, how do you believe that the relationship between procurement and marketing can be able to play into sustainability and sustainable development of businesses?
So I think most companies and organizations are still trying to figure out how best to address the imperative of sustainability. Some are most sophisticated than others, and those are the ones where I think what I observe is usually you have someone, and someone is not just one person, but you have an entity that kind of spearheads the effort and kind of orchestrates the effort and ensures that all departments are understand the role that they can play in sustainability. And as you said, rightfully so, sustainability, like digital, is kind of is something that everyone has to tackle, and in different ways. But you cannot have a reliable, credible, authentic sustainability strategy if, for instance, you don't have clear, reliable, clean data. Because you need to understand, what you're consuming, what you're producing, what your waste is, what the cost associated with it is, and this goes to your suppliers as well, and the entire life cycle of your product. So your IT department has to kick in. Your supply chain and procurement has to play a role. Finance has to play a role as well, and marketing as well. So I think, usually what happens is there is an entity that kind of sits at the center and spearheads that effort, orchestrates everything, and puts in place the frameworks that will allow the company to understand, first of all, understand what is happening, what is the lay of the land, understand what dimensions have the most impact from their perspective. And again, as I mentioned, depending on your sector, your industry, it may vary. Set objectives that are reasonable, ambitious, measurable, and will make a difference.
Right.
Be able to communicate on them, and then track them. And if usually it happens often, if there is a gap somewhere, get external help, because you will have very sharp and very knowledgeable agencies, groups, organizations, firms that will be able to bring you specific help where you need it. So I think it is, you need someone to own it, but that person or that group is not responsible for it. They have to kind of share and diffuse that responsibility and that accountability across the organization. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. And I think that the thing that's very interesting is building that groundswell, right? Kind of that excitement, those champions, and in their different functions can be simple. Simple. It's not always easy, right? But it can be simpler internally in a business, right? I'm curious though, how in the heck are you championing things and making sure that you build champions in your supplier base? Because if we take this holistic approach, this end-to-end life cycle approach that you mentioned, right? We need to rely on the supply chain as well to get on board with these initiatives, right?
Yes.
How does one do so?
So this has become a core element of the conversation with suppliers, because and it's not new, it's a few years old, but now especially big companies, but not only, have to report on their scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 emissions, and you cannot do this if you don't have that visibility with your suppliers. Now, depending on the sector, depending on the industry, that visibility can be more or less. But that is a core discussion point that people are having, and this is what I think enriches the conversation. Going back to one of the very first points that we were making at the beginning of this conversation, which is this is where you move from something being very unidimensional and transactional to something that is much more a conversation that is much richer. Suppliers have to be able to give visibility to their clients, to their customers, on what is happening in their own supply chain and in their own manufacturing and production facilities. And again, this is becoming and has become a core element of discussion. And if you're not able to give this, then it kind of pushes you out of the conversation.
Amazing. Well, I'll tell you this much. We never want to push you out of the conversation again, because this was a fantastic episode. And I thank you so much for sharing your insights today, Rani. As you said at one point, I think you said this is a sample group of one. But I'm very happy that this one was able to share your insights. And we really appreciate having you on today's episode. Before we round off, we want to do our quick little quick fire round that we do with all of our guests. One word or one sentence answers to questions that have absolutely nothing to do about anything we spoke about today, but instead maybe the things that make you tick as a person. Sound like a plan?
Yep, let's do. Let's go.
Fantastic. If you weren't going to work with marketing as an executive in global brands, what was maybe one of the other jobs that were a dream job for you?
A cook or a Tai Chi teacher.
Okay, fantastic. Well, that is a good segue into my next question. We have a phrase in Swedish, paradrätt. It means kind of the dish that you're going to invite people over with because you're really going to impress them with that dish. It's your go-to. If you like to cook, what would be your paradrätt if I'm coming over for dinner?
Oh, it's my family is from Syria. It's a very traditional Syrian dish called matlube. It's almost like a cake made out of eggplant, rice, and lamb, cooked for a long period of time that you will just turn around at some point, and it just comes out as a beautiful cake. It's very spectacular. It's a very family popular dish that you will never find in fancy restaurants, but this is what makes it great.
Always the best types of dishes as well. I think I've seen an Instagram video or two of a few of those being turned over. So very exciting. Okay, last question. All expenses trip paid. There's a ticket waiting for you tomorrow. You can take your family. You can head off yourself. Where are you heading?
I would go to Syria 20 years ago.
Okay, very nice. And if people want to get in touch with you, Rani, learn more about what you're doing, maybe, take part in the services that you're providing today, what's the best way to be able to get in touch?
So the best way is LinkedIn. I'm present and active on LinkedIn. So just ping me, and I'll be very happy to have a conversation, and we take it from there.
Fantastic. And I think that this episode proves marketing does love procurement, and maybe procurement loves marketing right back. Who knows?
I'm sure it does. Thank you very much for having me and for the question. It was an amazing conversation on my end.
Same here. Thank you for being on the show as well, Rani.
Ciao.